Welcome to our episode 2 of the Lay of the Land podcast from the Scottish Land Commission. I am your host, Calum Maclean. For this episode, I'm exploring land from a different perspective. We know that land can play a significant role in improving the well-being of the Scottish people. It's not only about the price of housing and the effects of derelict land on communities, it's also about access to green spaces and nature for the overall well-being of people living in these communities. Glaswegian adventurer, traveller and entrepreneur Amar Latif was just 4 years old when doctors told his parents he would become permanently blind. Amar has a very different relationship with the land to most people. In this episode, Amar talks to us about the importance of green spaces in urban areas. Did you know? Each year, Scots make over 162 million visits to parks and green spaces. Green space is a universal service, with nearly half, or 43%, of urban residents visiting their local green space at least once a week. Green space is a good value investment. For example, a study of Edinburgh's parks found that every £1 invested in the city's parks and green spaces delivered £12 return in social and environmental benefits. Well, Amar, first of all, if you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are.
Okay, my name is Amar Latif, and I'm the founder and director of Travelise, that takes groups of blind and sighted people all over the world, and I bring them back to on worldwide adventures. I'm also a TV presenter, most notably on travel presenting shows. But recently I've been behaving badly on Celebrity MasterChef and various programs like that, like Pilgrimage and Traveling Blind. But yeah, I'm this crazy bald blind guy.
I understand that you were born and grew up in Glasgow. Was getting out into the countryside something you did when you were younger, or is this something that's come to you later in life?
Well, it's come to me later in life, but just to correct you, I was actually born in I don't tell my Scottish friends this, but I'll tell you, Calum, I was actually born in England, believe it or not. I was born in Rochdale. So I'm Lancashire, but when we were 6, my dad used to run market stalls, and somebody told him that the Scottish people were very friendly. So he went up for a week to Scotland, to Oban, and this lady came up to him and said, "Oh, Mr. What did she say?" She went, "Oh, are you all right, son?" And he couldn't believe it. He called my mum and he goes, "Oh my God, there's a stranger and she's called me son. They're so friendly. So we're going to move up to Scotland." So that's why we moved up when I was 6. But my family was from Pakistan. You know, my parents moved over here in the 60s and started a family. And so when you come from Pakistan, when you come from poverty, where my dad used to sell soap barefoot in the local village, then they were more into like making their life here, because there's no social services back there. So they knew that they were in survival mode. So we didn't really go anywhere, and they didn't really value countryside, and we didn't go abroad. So the only holiday we used to do was, go to Blackpool for the day. And I remember we used to leave at 5 a.m, come back at 2 a.m. So we didn't really used to do that much. But then as I got older, and my early 20s, we used to go to places like Loch Lomond, and it was nice because we could give back to parents and show them how beautiful Scotland is, and take them away from their work, and then I started noticing things.
Much of your work that we see you on TV, you're out and about, you're walking, you're out in nature to some aspect. Is that what you do, in your day-to-day life? Do you have a kind of regular day you could tell us about at all?
My days are so varied. So if I'm on a Travelise tour, we do walking trips to places like Andalusia in Spain, where we're walking along rolling hills. Sometimes you can find me in Bulgaria at the Rila Mountains with other groups, sometimes in Italy. So it's kind of like really varied. So if I'm on a tour, I'm surrounded by a group of probably about 18 people, half blind, half sighted, and we're exploring the world together. And you've got sighted people describing with so much passion what they're seeing to people that they've never met before in their lives. And I'm the tour manager in those tours. But when I'm not away anywhere, I'm generally based in Leeds. I live in a little coach house in Headingley, and I do love to go walking in the Dales, which is about half an hour drive to an hour drive from my house.
Fantastic. And well, if we look over the past year, is that something you've been able to do? Get out of Leeds a lot, or how have you been accessing nature, accessing the outdoors even?
I think, like everybody else, I was suddenly restricted to my apartment, in my coach house. And I really struggled originally with COVID. I could walk around the streets, but because I'm blind, it made it really hard to access the countryside and woods. My friends were not, they were bubbling with people with their families and stuff. So I really struggled. And I never let anything stop me, despite being blind. I've learned that if you have a positive mindset, the world opens up to you. And I'm always a great believer that if you face adversity or any kind of challenge, if you have that right mindset, then you can achieve amazing things. So I said to myself, all right, Mr. Clever, like, here you are facing a situation, get out of this one. And then just chatting to a friend, my friend said, oh, actually, maybe shall I guide you through a video call? I was like, oh my God, yes, sure. So I ordered this chest strap that you can get, and I put my phone in it so that the person could see my view from my chest. And I walked out onto the streets, and then I decided, like, I don't want to walk on the street. Shall we go in the woods? And my friend was a bit nervous, and we found these woods near my house, and I couldn't believe it. I've been blind for 27 years, and I've never walked in the woods by myself. And it was such an incredible experience. I mean, she was saying, this was May last year. So she was saying, look, Amar, if you reach to your right down below, you'll feel some bluebells. On the left, you've got some daisies. You've got green foliage all around you. And I remember just walking in the woods, not attached to anybody. And then I said to my friend Natalie, I said, like, do you mind if I just switch the call off now? Because I just want to sit and feel what it's like. So I sat at the bottom of a tree, and I just heard birds, and I didn't have any links to anybody. And it was just such an incredible experience. And it was all thanks to COVID.
And how did you feel? Was that potentially a frightening experience, or you're someone that seems very positive about most situations?
It was, to some extent, at the beginning. It was like a bit nervous, like, I'm going in the woods, and what if the reception goes? What if the battery dies? What if I get lost? But I always find that when you push yourself and you have that uneasy feeling, that is the point when you're actually going to do something amazing. That is the point when you're going to, like, really become stronger, confident, and that was the feeling that I had. So I just persevered, and it was just incredible. We walked 15 minutes through the woods, and then they opened into like a beautiful big field, open space. And then I just decided to push it even more. I was like, look, actually, can I go jogging? And we worked out that I had to put my phone, like, lower down so that they could see the ground. And I was jogging past people that were having picnics. They're seeing this blind guy with his stick, waving it around in front of him and running past. And I don't know what they were thinking, but it was just the most incredibly liberating experience. And, not having anybody there immediately there, I could focus on the smells, like, the smells of the pine trees in the woods, and then open grass when you come out. Like, the land in front of you is just vast, and there I was, just running by myself. It was such an incredible experience.
And you're obviously used to traveling right around the world, walking across deserts and all sorts of things, up mountains. Do you think you can still have those amazing experiences in somewhere like the woods just nearby your house, within a short walk from where you are?
Absolutely. I was concerned when COVID struck because I go on 15, 20 trips a year, with my groups to all sorts of places. And I thought, oh my God, here I am stuck in my own apartment in my own neighborhood. But as I started walking, as we've all kind of noticed, you've got no choice. So you have to make the most of it. And in a way, that's what's special about traveling with, for example, my company Travel Eyes, because you've got blind people who you're painting the picture of what you can see, so you kind of slow things down. So when we're going to far-flung places and you've got beautiful views, you stop and the sight person describes what you're seeing, or you get your blind partner to touch things, and that's how it felt in the woods. Like, you slow it down, you feel where you are, you're using all your senses, you're touching, you're smelling, you're feeling the ground beneath you, and you're listening to the sound. It's just incredible. So it makes you more present in the moment.
Can you describe to me what maybe your ideal day or walk in your local area in Leeds, just staying nearby? Just tell me what your ideal outing would be.
Well, one of the other walks that I go to is in near Bramhope, near Harewood House, and it's like it's basically like a little road and surrounded by farms and rolling hills. And I love that. I love vast open space because I grew up in the city of Glasgow and I live in Leeds. And I just love the vast openness where there's not many people there. And I'm just walking. And I just find that so incredible. And I love it when the sun's out or when the sun is just before it's setting and it's quite strong. I mean, there's this place where I do go in Harewood House where, there's the fields on my right with lots of corn, and then behind that is the sun, and it's just blazing at me, and it's such a special feeling, and it's quiet, and you can hear all the birds around you and the wildlife. I love that. That's amazing.
Obviously, you're enjoying the moment there, and it does sound pretty good. Do you think it has wider benefits to your life? Does it leave you in a better mood? Does it help you to your physical fitness as well? Getting out into nature, for me personally, is something that I feel like I have to do every day. Otherwise, I can't be me in a way. Do you feel the same?
Yes, absolutely. I think it really chills you out, because when you're sat in front of a computer, if you're constantly waiting for that email to come, whether it's a good email or bad email, like, it has effects on in your mind, doesn't it? And then when you're just leaving everything behind and you're going for that walk, and it's so simple, just taking one step in front of the other and just chilling. It is such a special feeling, and I think it is really, really good for us all, for our mental health. It's almost like cleansing our minds, and it's so incredible how, like, the countryside can do that, and just, being so much in the moment can do that.
Absolutely. I don't know what it's like where you are. You're describing a beautiful setting with this pine forest, but around about where you are in Leeds, even, is it the kind of place where you're seeing lots of, like Glasgow might have been parts of Glasgow, lots of ruined buildings and lots of places changing, the face of the city changing at all? How is it around where you are? Is it easy for people to, get away from houses, to get away from man-made things very quickly?
Yeah, but Leeds is pretty good like that, because within half an hour to an hour you can reach the Dales, which is just vast rolling green hills all around. Leeds itself is like very built up, like in the city centre. You've got everything like restaurants and bars and buildings getting built, tall buildings getting built. So it's quite good because you can just escape. I did a documentary for the BBC called River Walks, and we went to Nidderdale, which is in Yorkshire Dales, and I walked along the river there. And that was really special, walking along the river, and then you come to little little towns like Pateley Bridge, where I went to the oldest sweet shop in England. And that was quite special, because like you can be walking in the wilderness, but then that then leads you to some interesting little places. And then I walked to this farmland where I helped a farmer build a dry stone wall. And that was quite a special feeling, like just I'm blind, but it was so natural to just take a stone and feel where I was putting it, and it just grounds you. It makes you feel so earthy, and that was quite a special feeling. It was lambing season as well, so I didn't help him to do any lambs, thankfully, but I held a little baby lamb, and it was just nice to be in the countryside and getting those experiences. And then I happened to walk into this lady who was walking two llamas, bizarrely enough, in Yorkshire.
Wow.
So it's a lady called Susan Benson, and then I took one of the llamas for a walk. So it was a blind leading a llama. So that was quite special. So you can come across all sorts of interesting things when you're out and about.
So you live a very adventurous life. Was there a particular moment that inspired you to start doing all this traveling, inspired you to then take other people on these trips with you?
Yeah, I guess I worked as an accountant for British Telecom as a management accountant, and I headed up their commercial finance division. And I did that for 7 years, and I had money to spend. I wanted to go traveling. I wanted to see the world. Because when I lost my sight at the age of 18, I knew that there was a beautiful world, and I wasn't going to let blindness stop me from seeing it. But at that point, when I tried to travel, a lot of group travel companies would say, you need to bring a carer with you. I thought, I don't need a carer. I'm a professional. I can pack my own bags and I can brush my own hair when I had it. And they said, look, and especially you can't go on trips like skiing or sailing or, adventurous trips. So I realized that if you want something in this world that doesn't exist, either you do without or you got to build it yourself. So back in 2004, I set up the world's first international travel company that does take blind people on holiday. And I guess so. Since then, that's what made me travel. Like, I faced a challenge, I faced adversity, I faced discrimination, and I used that energy, that positive thinking, and having that right mindset to set up this organization. And I'm really proud of it. And it's one of the greatest inspirations of mine, to see my blind and sighted travelers, exploring the world together. And it totally restores your faith in humanity.
Fantastic. You're obviously someone that's used to or is experienced in, making people see more of the world, encouraging people to potentially change their minds and change how they view things. If you look at the big situation in the world, we've got this climate emergency happening. I mean, do you have any ideas of how we can encourage people, even within the UK, within Scotland, to think about this more and think about changes they can do in their own lives, whether it's where they live in the city, whether it's where they live in the countryside, to start to change things? How can we encourage people to see things in a new way?
I mean, it's so incredible. Like, wherever what is taught as the COVID is that if when you're going sightseeing or when you're walking anywhere, like, just being so present in the moment is such a special feeling, mentally. And we don't have to travel far necessarily. And I think for the environment, it's good to have knowledge, to see what you're doing could impact in a good way for the environment. For example, there's a program on Netflix about what's it called, Seaspiracy, and they were talking about how the fishing industry is far more impactful, damaging on the environment than, for example, knocking down trees. And I guess knowledge is so important. And then once we have that knowledge, we need to work out great ways of making progress and making sure that we look after, this one planet that we live in.
Do you see projects on your travels that are, dealing with things like protecting different habitats or planting trees, for example? Do you see projects that you that can then share to other people and pick up knowledge from other countries around the world, even?
Yeah, I mean, in Africa, there's a lot of projects that we've visited where, elephant orphanages where they're protecting the elephants. There's lion conservation programs, where they're protecting lions where the numbers are declining. I also, I'm good friends with Sir Stelios of EasyJet. So I've been out to, special charitable events on his terrace in Monaco, where he's worked with the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, and, worked alongside them. And also, like, closer to home, when we did river walks and we were in the Nidderdale, there was one farmer who planted 10,000 trees. So it was great to see how, he worked together with Yorkshire Water to plant all those trees. So you see like what everybody's doing, in their own countries, and it's really inspiring. It's great that these things are going on.
Now, where I'm here in Scotland, I've got luckily a lot of freedom in the sense that if I want to go for a swim, for example, I can just go somewhere. If I want to go hill walking, I can almost go anywhere I like, just about. Is that something you find is quite different to, your situation where you live in Leeds, for example? How easy is it just to say, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to just go for a walk?
See, for me, as a blind person, that is one of the limiting factors. Like, when you're blind, you feel quite restricted, and you can do a lot of stuff on your computer because that bit's accessible. Technology has liberated millions of blind people all around the world, but then when you're going out for a walk, I mean, there is some technology bits that I use on my phone that help guide you, but then to go into the countryside is quite limiting. So, I've got to arrange it with somebody like on the other end of the phone, or that's coming with me. So it's normally not that easy.
Yeah. What would you say if you were to look at what you get from it, the good things you get from it? What would you describe?
I I totally love going out because when you are walking around in the open space, you just get such peace of mind. You seem to calm down. Like, if you've got some like any stress, you calm down. You start looking at the world in a different way. Almost in sort of more relaxed, calm eyes. You're
Mm.
walking around, and it helps you to put things into perspective as well. I think you kind of you realize that you're just this one being in this vast world, and you get inspired by nature.
Mm-hmm.
When you experience nature all around you.
Is it something that you use to help make business decisions? Is it something you use to, um, guide you in making big decisions in life? I know for me, if I want to make a decision, think about something, I'm always better doing it out and about, whether that's walking down the street, whether that's going up in the hills, just to be physically active whilst thinking, I think.
Absolutely. Like, my moments when I just want to, empty my head of thoughts. And then when I'm in a beautiful place, I will let thoughts just, crystallize in my head automatically. Like sometimes when I'm working on something that requires a bit of creativity, sometimes it's good not to force it, but just go to a beautiful place and then just let creativity flow. Also, yeah, if there's a difficult decision, you coax it out by going for a nice walk, somewhere beautiful and peaceful. That really does help.
Has your approach to the importance of nature or the importance of getting outdoors, has that changed over the past year as a result of COVID and as a result of the changes that we've all faced in our lives?
Absolutely, because I've learned to now do that more independently with my video phone technology. I've learned to use other apps on my phone to help me go out, despite being blind. And, I've also also created a companion cane that helps, sighted people guide me at socially distant, so which helps me, which helps other people to guide me at a sociable distance. So it is a bit different. I mean, then we're all wearing masks, so I mean, I think we're all finding new ways of doing things, and I've been able to do that as well.
When you're out, when you're going for a walk, when you're meandering, when you're wandering, whatever you want to call it, are you thinking about the places that are around you? Even without going out into the countryside, without going and seeing the farmland, are you thinking about things that are closer to you and how the land is around you, how vacant and derelict land, and how we use our cities? Are you thinking about these kind of things at all?
Yeah, like, because I live in it's students and professional area of Leeds with lots of houses and stuff, and I sometimes think how densely populated certain areas are, but then you get surprised because you suddenly come to a vast open greenery space like a park, and you think, oh my God, this is great that somebody's thought about this, that we've got that for people to enjoy. And I also live near Kirkstall Abbey, which is a ruined abbey. It used to be a monastery, and it was bombed by Henry VIII when he did his bombing spree. And it's in vast green area with a river flowing and very mature trees, and it's just such a lovely place to go walking there as well. And I really appreciate it when you've got something from the past that's there, because it's almost like the past is connecting with the now, because the now is the houses, they're 100 years old, but this monastery is way older. And I just think that that's so special that we preserve these things. And when I take my groups to places like Egypt, because we're blind, we're touching 3,000-year-old temples, and you get this buzz from touching things in the past. And I think sometimes when you're sighted, you probably don't think about doing that, but when you're blind, because you're not got the sense of the sight, you're using all your other senses, and it's amazing. Like, and then I felt hieroglyphics, which blind people can actually feel. It's like the Egyptians knew that to show blind people to read. I'm sure it wasn't that, but it was so special to make that connection.
So would you encourage me as a seeing person on the next time I go out, even if I go for a walk this afternoon, to start touching things more?
I think so. I think it's so special. Like, touch the flowers, smell them. If you come across like dry stone wall, just like touching it, because it's like that's probably been there for hundreds of years. Anything old, it's just, I get that magic buzz. It feels like you're almost connecting to it. It's just a nice thing to do.
And you were talking about that you physically built a dry stone wall as well. Did it feel
That's
like you were, obviously people have been building them for years and years, you're tapping into a kind of a knowledge that's been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and it's also such a simple, basic thing to lift up a rock and put it into a pattern almost when you're creating a wall. How did it feel?
It felt great because it was just about touch and feel, but it just makes you feel so grounded, when you do that. And these stone, it was probably a wall that was built about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and it fell down. So it felt almost like I was connecting with the past. These stones were from the past, and it just brought a very interesting dimension, and it gave me a very special feeling that there I was in this vast open green landscape in a farmland, and I was putting this wall up.
There's all this. Maybe I, as a seeing person, walking around, I'm not often taking the time to think about, exactly what's around me, exactly, what's in front of me, and the connections to our own history everywhere just around us. Whether it's in a wall, whether it's in a church, whether it's in the bridge just down the road from me, built with stones that have been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is what happens, like when people are sighted, because you're looking at everything. It's just quite easy just to take a glance, take a picture, and move on. You know, a lot of people do it these days for Instagram, you know, to get that perfect shot. But when you can't see, you actually use all your other senses. And when you start using all your senses, I think the world comes alive.
You're not the kind of person that can just sit about at home, I think.
Oh no, not at all. You know, I've been so used to like traveling, going to countries, meeting people, connecting with people, and you know, we've just had such incredible times. You know, for example, in South Africa, we've been to Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens,
Hmm.
and talking about touching things. You know, there they've got a trail that helps blind people walk around independently, which I found amazing as well. So there's so many things to kind of like go out there and explore, and I'm so excited, you know, to experience them.
We're talking about the benefits that you and I, humans, get from being outdoors. Do you think we can do more as well to encourage nature to flourish? Whether it's in places that we build in cities, we're talking about dry stone dikes. I mean, they're very natural things almost. We're not using anything but stones and putting them in information there. Can we as humans be doing more, do you think, to let nature flourish, as well as the benefits we're getting from it, but giving back as well?
I think so. I think if you think about it, like in the last um, 50 years, you know, the population has doubled. And I think the consequence of that is that we're building more. So we're actually taking too much from nature. So I think we need to really, you know, think about these things because they're very special things, like things that have developed over, you know, centuries and centuries. Like it's hard to get them to come back, you know, like trees and, you know, nature areas. So I think there's a lot more that we can do.
Have you seen examples on your travels? You're talking about the gardens there that blind people are designed for blind people to walk around. Have you seen other examples of places where people have encouraged nature, let it flourish on your travels?
Yeah, so I mean, in Cape Town, the Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens are amazing. So you know, there's a vast space there with trees and different plants and stuff. And what they've done is they've made it inclusive, so you can walk if you can see, obviously, but if you're blind, you can hold on to a little waist high rope and you follow that rope, and then every so often you get to a little metal box with braille on it, and it tells you, like, you know, what if you reach your hand out to the right, what you can touch. And it's quite an amazing experience, you know, out there. And it's got this little funny bit where it says, okay, so you've been walking for about an hour and a half now, so you might want to sit down. So if you let go of the rope on your left hand, reach across the path to the rope on the right, follow that along, and you'll come to a bench. But before you sit on the bench, just shout in case you sit on top of someone. But yeah, I mean, that's it's got a herb garden there as well, you know, and you know, as a blind person, you know, it's hard to go to unfamiliar places on your own for the first time, especially in the countryside. But this is one place that you can go, which is great.
Fantastic. And through Travel Eyes, it's obviously run for blind people to travel and to see places, but also you're helping, if I were to come on a Travel Eyes trip, for example, as a seeing person, can you talk me through how I'm interacting with the process? How is it for me?
Yeah, basically, you're not coming as a carer, or I mean, you get a reduced rate on the trip, but all you're
Bargain.
doing is you're just basically somebody's eyes, so you're just kind of seeing what you're seeing. So I think initially sighted people worry that they might not be good at describing things, and I think I usually say, look, you know, it's about what you can see, and no two people will describe things the same. And some blind people might not want lots of description. Some blind people might be, you know, just interested in, oh, you know, like, tell me about the shops around. Some blind people might want to know a bit more about the architecture. some blind people will be like, right, okay, don't bother about describing. Let's just sit down. Let's just go for a drink, because you're on holiday, so it's like you're not constantly describing, but you don't need any experience of blindness. We've got a video on YouTube. If you type in how to guide a blind person, the Travelized video comes up, and it just shows you how to do the practical side of things. But you just choose from the range of holidays on the website, and you book as a sighted person, so you don't need to know any blind person or bring any blind person with you, but you just meet everybody meets at the airport, and there's a tour manager, and the tour manager will then partner you up with someone, and then each day, and don't worry, Calum, because you won't be partnered with me the entire week. I can't think of anything worse for you, but each day you'd be partnered with a different blind person, so it makes it fun. So the mornings on a Travelized trip, everybody's so excited as we go and explore places. I mean, talking about ancient places, one of my favorite moment was, we went to Pompeii, where, this ruined city, in 79 AD, the volcano erupted and then buried the city, and they only discovered it over the last few hundred years. And when we're walking along there, that's so special. You're feeling like the big cobblestones underneath you, and you're feeling the tracks for the horse carts to go through. And we go to this ancient Roman brothel there. It's not been working for 2,000 years. And I always say to our sighted travelers, okay, guys, remember, you're the eyes for our blind travelers, so you have to describe with loving detail what you can see. And I remember there was this sighted guide. Her name's Maggie, and she worked for the UN, and she's in her 60s, and she was struggling to describe, how shall I say, these explicit frescoes above each door. And I remember her saying to her young 23-year-old visually impaired partner, Jenny, she's like, Jenny, do you fancy a cup of tea instead? And I remember Jenny saying, no, actually, I wouldn't mind having the frescoes described, please. So there's always interesting moments on these trips.
The whole process of what someone like myself as a sighted person, what you're describing on these holidays, it's something that I don't have to do necessarily abroad. It's something I could do here in the UK, even if I wanted to experience a place in a new way for myself.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many beautiful places in the UK. Like we have trips even in the UK, and I think now with the COVID situation, I think people are now going to be exploring a bit more of what's at home, and it is so amazing. Like, I'm always amazed at how beautiful the UK is. You've just got such incredible places, that you can go and explore, and steeped in history. There's lots of places like America, places like the United Arab Emirates. They don't have the luxury of the history that we have in Europe and in the UK. So, there's lots of things to really explore, and explore in a mindful way that's great for your mental health.
Absolutely. I think that people have found, particularly over the last year, the importance of getting outdoors, being in green spaces, even in cities, for mental health. What would life be like for you or for a blind person in a city if it weren't for green spaces, in amongst all these buildings?
I think for people like us, it'd probably be just like noisy, polluted, and just kind of like being on edge all the time. It's quite nice when you get to green space within a city. I mean, even in London, they do have, great green spaces, and just taking a break from the hecticness of it all is just great. It's so refreshing.
And how important is it for you personally? I know for me, I have to get outside, particularly when the sun's shining, particularly when the day is, semi-good here in Scotland. Do you have to get outdoors every single day?
I do. I need that sunshine. I need my vitamin D. And when I feel the sun on my skin, it just feels so right. It feels so perfect, and I feel good. And I need that. If I don't go out for a few days, I don't feel as positive as I come across.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, I think I can see it in my mind. It's got to happen. I'm going to go out and go for a walk down the river and jump into a plunge pool. I know.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe you're going to do that. If I was doing that, I'd need to wear a wetsuit.
Maybe you can join me virtually wherever you are.
That sounds good. I'll join you with a cup of coffee.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amar.
Thank you, Calum. Really nice to talk to you.
So that's it for episode 2 of the Lay of the Land podcast. Thank you so much to Amar for sharing his inspiring story. My chat with Amar really gave me an amazing new perspective on how I could experience the land around me. Make sure you follow Amar on social media for updates on his adventures. And if you'd like more information on how you might get involved in the way land is owned and used in your area, visit myland.scot for stories, news, and case studies for what's happening with the land around you. Join us for the next episode soon.